Welcome to the Bald Brad Show. Our lead story of the day is regarding the train derailments in both Ohio and Texas. As always, support the show by hitting that like and subscribe button, leaving us a short, sweet comment down below. Your help and support would be greatly appreciated. Well, many of you have heard the train derailment that happened in East Palestine, Ohio, that launched chemicals up into the sky and was pouring all over the town and the surrounding area and also the surrounding states. Well, the Biden administration came out and said, well, nothing to see here, folks. Not a big deal. Air quality's fine, even though there's water contamination concerns and thousands of animals are now dying in the area. The federal government has declared the air at the site of the derailed train carrying chemicals safe following a controlled burn and mounting concerns about the long-term effects of the incident. Photos of a half-mile of the burning train cars, followed by images of a towering pillar of dark smoke over East Palestine, Ohio, circulated online. We've all seen the video of this stuff. I mean, it doesn't take anybody with any sort of brain power to acknowledge the fact of, wow, that doesn't look good. Those are chemicals going up in the sky. Well, they got to go somewhere, meaning they're going to fall on everybody else in the surrounding area to know there's going to be some sort of effects from animals dying to animals being sick to humans potentially dying and the long-term effects of it to being sick as well. The train operator and the government officials worked to respond after 50 of the 150 car trains came off the tracks on February 3rd. At least 10 of the derailed cars were transporting these chemicals, vinyl chloride, while others were packed with ethanol and all sorts of other chemicals. Well, concerned that the derailed cars transporting hazardous material may explode and send shrapnel flying, Norfolk Southern ultimately held a controlled burn on February 6th, days after area residents were ordered to evacuate. Now, you got to love this because the EPA is getting involved in this. And if anybody knows about the EPA, you can't even freaking dig a hole in a river, let alone just launch chemicals in the sky willy-nilly from a controlled burn. So it's amazing that they would even let this type of thing happen. So the U.S. EPA continues to conduct air monitoring throughout the East Palestine community. The Environmental Protection Agency said in a statement February 12th, per Fox News. Air monitoring, since the fire went out, has not detected any levels of concern in the community that can be attributed to the incident at this time. I mean, honestly, does anybody really believe that at all? Because I sure in hell don't, especially coming from the Biden administration that's connected to the EPA now, because the EPA is technically under the Biden administration. And we've seen how much the Biden administration lies to us and says they're being transparent when they're not being transparent about anything. And we'll actually see that again because we have a clip from White House press briefing from yesterday with reporters asking left and right about this very incident here. And you'll hear Karine Jean-Pierre's answer. And it's just mind-blowing. It's just mind-blowing. Well, the EPA warned that residents may still smell odors. Yeah, air quality's fine though, but you're going to smell something. Yeah. And to contact their doctors if they experience any changes in health. Why would they need to contact their doctors if changes in health are going to occur? Everything's fine. The air quality's good. Why even bother even mentioning that? There should be nothing. This is a nothing burger according to the Biden administration. The agency has not released a full list of chemicals that may have been emitted into the environment as a result of the derailment. You got to love this. They don't even have a full list right now because they're still kind of running their investigations, but they're saying, hey, air quality's fine. Don't even worry about it. Even though we know some of these chemicals are basically invisible to the naked eye, and you actually have to wipe down the surfaces to actually see if the chemical is there or isn't there. And there's a lot of symptoms that come from these chemicals as well. But again, folks, everything's A-okay from the Biden administration. It's so typical of their messaging, right? You got a massive cluster bleep taking place, and they're going to play it off like, not a big deal. It's just an issue. Where have we seen this before? Oh, our southern border. Massive issue. Millions of people pouring across the border. They call it a challenge for literally 2 years, and then they downgraded it after they're breaking records month after month to being just called an issue. This is what the Biden administration does. They just downplay everything. Oh, we're shooting objects out of the sky? Not a big deal. Do we know what they are? Nope, but we're still going to shoot them out of the sky. You can't make this up. Evacuation orders enacted by Ohio governor and Pennsylvania governor were lifted on February 9th. Hazardous material specialist and former chief of the Youngstown told reporters this, and we got a video clip of what he said. This one comes from a local ABC News. Let's see what they have to say here from his interview as well.
We now know 3 more chemicals that were on board the Norfolk Southern train that derailed here in East Palestine just over a week ago. And we're being told that some of those chemicals are dangerous.
We basically nuked a town with chemicals so we could get a railroad open.
The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency sent a letter to Norfolk Southern stating that ethylene, glycol, monobutyl ether ethylhexyl acrylate, and isobutylene were also in the rail cars that were derailed, breached, or on fire. Caggiano says ethylhexyl acrylate is especially worrisome. He says it's a carcinogen, and contact with it can cause burning and irritation in the skin and eyes. Breathing it in can irritate the nose, throat, and cause coughing and shortness of breath. Isobutylene is also known to cause dizziness and drowsiness when inhaled.
I was kind of surprised that when they quickly told the people they can go back home, but then said if they feel like they want their homes tested, they can have them tested. I would have far rather they did all the testing.
Caggiano says it's possible some of these chemicals could still be present.
What does that sound like? Oh, I don't know, maybe COVID-19. Hey, make sure that you take this vaccine without a ton of testing. I know Neil deGrasse Tyson has completely said something that contradicts that of like, oh, well, we did do some testing. Yes, you did some small testing. We should have a larger testing of the vaccine to see what were the symptoms or what were the ramifications or what were the consequences of taking it. But the same thing here. Hey, go home. We'll figure it out later. Oh my God, there's a massive boil coming out of the side of your face. It doesn't look good. God, how did that happen? Gee, I don't know. Maybe you decided to blow up 50 trail cars or rail cars and release a ton of chemicals into the sky. Now they're pouring upon the entire citizens of that area. So when somebody gives birth in like 10 to 20 years, their baby's going to come out with 2 or 3 heads. All the fish swimming in the rivers nearby have 5 heads coming out of them. And they go, oh, well, how did that happen? Oh God, when Joe Biden's going to be long dead and gone because, you know, he's already 85 to 100 years old as it is. So yeah, it's an amazing type of thing that's happening here from the EPA to the federal government to even the state level, really.
In homes and on objects until you clean them thoroughly.
So there's a lot of what ifs, and we're going to be looking at this thing 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the line and wondering, gee, cancer clusters could pop up, well water could go bad.
Caggiano recommends anyone who's in the East Palestine area get a health checkup. He says get a record of where your health stands now so that moving forward you have documentation of any possibly related effects to the train derailment.
Freaking wake up, you got cross-eyed, just like, oh God, your teeth are falling out. What's happening, Glenn? Glenn, what's happening? I can't taste or smell anything. Not to mention this stuff's literally falling from the sky into our soil. So Lord only knows what type of contaminations that's going to happen or what kind of effect that's going to happen on the crop. So, I mean, you got a massive bleep storm taking place. But, when something like this happens, you guys, there's somebody usually at the head of all this that's supposed to be taking care of these types of things and being around. And who might that be under the Biden administration that wants to run for president? Oh, it's Pete Buttigieg. You got to love this guy because I don't know what it is with the Democrat Party just in general, but whenever you suck at your job, it automatically means that you should run for president. Whereas if you're good at your job, you never run for president. So I don't know what it is for the Democrat Party just lining up here and thinking they can actually run for president when they suck at their job at everything. But hey, you know what? Joe Biden got in office, so maybe it works. Well, one of the Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg's main objectives to push equity into every facet of his department's actions and policies. So rather than actually focusing on his job, this is what happens when you focus on equity. You get massive chemicals being thrown into the sky. You just got to love it. He received those marching orders from President Joe Biden himself, who signed an executive order on day 1 in his office mandating the whole of the federal government be used to advance racial equity. So this is what happens, folks. It's gone from our education system into the federal government itself, and that's why everything they do sucks, and you lead to situations like this. That's why if it seems like Buttigieg is a bit slow to address safety issues that might actually matter to the average American or heck, those in Ohio or Texas, such as the hazardous derailment in East Palestine, which was just mentioned, it is because he is. In fact, the safety first portion of the Department of Transportation's website hasn't been updated since May of 2020, basically since the guy got his job, which speaks volumes about how much the president's administration actually cares about preventing harm. They don't care about preventing harm. Look what they're doing at the southern border. Look at our freaking foreign policy. Give me a freaking break. Instead, their focus is on making sure that the federal government uses its might and power to redistribute your tax dollars towards underserved communities and make sure that agencies are using hiring practices that focus not on merit, but on skin color and other immutable traits. God, who does that sound like that was hired for the Biden administration? That's like the worst press secretary in modern history. Oh, it's Karine Jean-Pierre. That's right. The one that doesn't answer any questions, but she's being transparent and clear all the time. Well, on Monday, Buttigieg made it a point to address the racial makeup of construction workers before even addressing the situation in East Palestine. You got a massive plume of smoke, chemicals in the sky. That's your job to take care of, make sure everybody's okay. But we got to address equity concerns first, folks, because racism is a huge issue now in the United States, which it's not. But he can't even do his job, right? We got the worst roads in freaking all the globe, especially here in California. I think we literally have the worst roads in the entire United States. But, you know, that's speaking about California, which isn't much to say. But Buttigieg just sucks at his job. While at the National Association of Counties conference, Buttigieg bemoaned, quote, "We have heard way too many stories from generations past of infrastructure where you got a neighborhood, often a neighborhood of color, that finally sees the project come to them. But everyone in the hard hats on that project doing the good paying jobs don't look like they came from anywhere near that neighborhood." Who cares? The neighborhood's being upgraded. Who freaking cares who's doing the work? The work is getting done. I'm so tired of this. Like, well, we don't have the exact numbers we need. We don't have 25% blacks. We don't have 25% whites. We don't have 25% Asians, and we don't have 25% Hispanics. Something's going wrong. And 50 of those aren't male, and 50 of those aren't female in terms of percentages and proportion. It's so stupid. And this is what happens when you have people focused on stupid stuff like this. That's a nothing burger. It's not an issue in the United States, but they're making it one. You want to know what's an issue? Freaking chemicals falling on people and the long-term ramifications of that. We don't know what's going to happen to these people when you got a third eye growing out of their side of their head. Who the hell knows what's going to happen here? What does it matter if the person's wielding a jackhammer in black, brown, yellow, or white? That's exactly what I said, and it doesn't. What should matter is that he has the competency to not hurt himself, his coworkers, or the public. Well, to the Democrats, it matters a great deal. In fact, equity is one of the Department of Transportation's 4 main priorities, according to the website. No, folks, I'm not kidding. What does it say? Climate and sustainability, equity, safety, and transportation. As mentioned, the department's Safety First website still touts the goals of Secretary Elaine Chao, who is running the show for former President Donald Trump. That sort of speaks for itself as to where Buttigieg's priorities are. Nobody knows because nobody knows where the guy's at. He's always hidden behind something. Meanwhile, the equity tab priority proudly claims, for the first time, Department of Transportation has centered equity as a department-wide strategic goal. This is a critical step in institutionalizing equity across the department's policies and programs with the aim of reducing inequities across our transportation systems and the communities they affect. You really want to get a good grasp of this. They call this in the 1619 project, our infrastructure and certain freeways and highways, they call them racist because they go through certain areas that are predominantly people of color or black people, and they attribute that to racism. So yes, folks, not only is milk racist, exercising racist, the color of my coffee mug here is racist. If you haven't got your coffee yet, folks, it's morning. What are you doing? You got to grab a cup of coffee here and listen to the Bald Brad Show. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button if you haven't already. Everything's racist. Roadways are racist. You're racist. Even if you say you're not racist, according to the people of the left, you're still racist. Well, equity is their central focus, and they're quite proud of it, by the way. And if you want to know what that means and entails for Americans, as Professor Victor Davis Hanson explained to the Daily Wire last spring, what does that mean is that in reductionist fashion, any inequality is due to racism or bias, and the government must have the wisdom and morality to punish perceived victimizers and redistribute the supposed victims, which is what I was just saying. You might not be racist, but you are racist according to the Democrat Party and the progressive left. And what must be done about it? You must have money removed from your pocket and redistribute that in any way, shape, or form. You might lose some assets. And how does that have to be lost? Well, they might take that asset and give it to somebody else. So that's a long-term kind of policy that might be implemented by the Democrat Party. And you might be like, well, that's crazy. They're never going to do that. Really? I mean, a lot of things that were conspiracy theories in the past that we never thought the Democrat Party would do, or we at least said they would do from the conspiracy theorist side of it, they actually did. So who the hell knows what's going to happen here? I mean, they're still trying to do some sort of rehabilitation for these areas by taking your tax dollars and literally giving it to them. We saw that in Chicago already. All else does not count. No merit, not tragedies, not health, not class, not work ethic, not family structures, not culture, not anything except the elite in charge will always be exempt from the ramifications of their own equity ideology. So maybe that's why Buttigieg waited 10 days before commenting on the train crash in East Palestine. It just didn't affect him. As Hanson explained, he's immune from the ramifications of their own policies. What moved Buttigieg to comment on it wasn't a concern for the matter at hand, but that conservative media and even some Democrats were hounding him for a response. In the same way that they're trying to hound Joe Biden to get up there on the podium and talk about this thing. They're still trying to get the guy to talk about the UFOs, the UAPs, the objects, the craft that have been shot down, and he just won't do it. I mean, I'm not going to show you the entire press briefing like I normally do here, but here's a question, and there's been many, because this is 51 minutes into the press briefing, about Ohio, about Texas, and this just gives a synopsis on how the White House is handling this whole thing with this one response. Let's go ahead and roll it.
George in the back.
Yeah, I did have two follow-up questions on the train derailment. Should the Obama era rail safety braking rule, the better braking technology rule that the last administration knocked out, should that be reinstated? And secondly, beyond EPA testing and so on, what is the level of the president's concern about human safety in Northeast Ohio and East Palestine now that animals there are dying from the toxic gas?
Again, I just want to be really mindful. I know that we're monitoring the situation. I can tell you that the president has been briefed on this, and just don't want to get ahead of what's currently happening on the ground, or the reports that we're hearing. But again, I just laid out what the EPA has been doing for about a week. They've been on the ground testing the air quality. They've been talking to locals on the ground, trying to meet their needs at the moment. I just don't want to get ahead of any specifics here because, again, we're monitoring closely.
Some sense of whether there's a sense of.
Don't you love the fact she should be like, well, the EPA's been monitoring this for a week, but I don't really want to get into any of it. Why? Why? I mean, how many times, Karina, are you going to say that you're specific about something, you're being clear, you're being transparent, and then you're asking a great question, and you have a week of data, and you don't have anything to provide to the American people and these reporters asking the questions? It's quite astonishing, folks. We're so used to it now, are we not? We're all used to not getting any answers here from this administration. It's the most blacked out administration we've ever seen. And no, I'm not talking about race. I'm talking about in terms of the information getting out to the American people for anybody out there that wants to use my words against me. It's so mind-blowing here. Freaking week this has been going on and we got nothing. Still got nothing. In the same way the UFO, the UAP stuff was asked in the same White House press briefing here. No answer still. Not a damn clue. Now they're saying, we can't find the stuff. Yeah, we actually don't know if we're ever going to recover any of the craft that we just shot down other than the Chinese balloon. Great. Perfect.
Urgency or concern about human life.
So look, we're always concerned about human life. That's what I said at the top, right? I said that our number one priority is the health and the safety of the community. That is our number one priority here.
You guys, they blew up the trains. They did a controlled burn. They're going to sit there as there's chemicals raining on you going, hey, we care about you. We love you. Hope everything will be okay. Everything's fine. Breathe it all in. Breathe it all in. It's fine. We tested the air quality. You're good. As people's cars are saturated with this stuff, their houses are saturated with this stuff, their animals are saturated with this stuff, their freaking crops are saturated with this stuff, animals are dying in the area left and right. Everything's fine. You gotta be kidding me. But this is the Biden administration for you. This is who Democrats vote for. A bunch of idiots here are running the show, and now you're seeing it in real time. They can't even figure out trains, you guys. You have Pete Buttigieg that's grandstanding on equity, inclusion, and justice, or whatever, some idiotic phrase that they want to push here, making sure they got enough black people, white people, Asian people, and Hispanic people running the show on things at equal proportions rather than actually focusing on what really matters here. So now your cousin that's living in freaking East Palestine, Ohio, has his thumbs falling off his body. His ears are being lopped off left and right because of some chemical burn that he might have, or he's losing his teeth, 20 years down the road. His hair's falling out like mine. Who the hell knows what's going on over there? But Jesus, this administration is nutso.
That's what EPA is doing on the ground. That's why we've been working hand in glove with the state of Ohio on this issue. And we want to make sure that their concerns are being met. And that's what we're going to continue to do. That is how we see our role here in the federal government. Look, I can add a little bit more. FEMA continues to monitor the emergency and engage with State Emergency Operations Center. And right now there are no requests for federal assistance from FEMA. So I can let you know that piece. Okay.
Oh, rest assured, don't you guys feel better? I mean, if you go to the White House for any sort of support, I mean, it's a stupid thing to do, but a lot of people do. They go to the federal government for that support mechanism, which you're not going to get from this administration. I mean, don't get me wrong. They'll spend your money and they'll give you free money, but it's just driving us further in the debt and further in the wrong direction. And that wasn't the only train derailment. We also have this one in Texas that happened days after the Ohio incident. A train containing hazardous materials derailed early on Monday morning near Texas, less than 2 weeks after a Norfolk Southern train in East Palestine, Ohio, which we just mentioned, derailed and spilled industrial chemicals. And again, the White House is saying, everything's fine. Don't worry about it. A semi-truck crashed with a Union Pacific train near the intersection of Highway 59 and Midline Road, according to a report from the Houston Public Media, causing 21 train cars to derail. The local police department of the area said in a social media statement that the truck driver was deceased when first responders arrived on the scene. Yeah, I'd imagine. Union Pacific spokesperson confirmed with the Daily Wire that the company sent a hazardous material crew to examine the crashed train, which was carrying chemical products intended for retail. Although the train spilled 100 gallons of diesel fuel, none of the chemical substances were released. The derailment, in which no train crew members were injured, is presently under investigation. Quote, the train was hauling household chemicals, including paint and aerosol cans. There were no releases, thank God. Railroads are required by federal law to transport the chemicals and other hazardous commodities that our customers produce and Americans use daily, including fertilizer, ethanol, crude oil, and chlorine. Railroads are the safest mode of transportation. I do agree with that. And these are kind of freak accidents, I believe, that are just kind of happening. Like, you got a guy that basically crashed a semi-truck into a Union Pacific train and the guy died. It's not like this is happening well, I shouldn't say it's not happening all the time. I got a buddy that does work with trains, and so I get a lot of the stories about what's happened. You got a lot of people committing suicide, train accidents with the cars and stuff like that. So you would hope that Pete Buttigieg would maybe put on his big boy pants and stop focusing on equity and rather focusing on what really matters, which is our transportation. And we got a lot to keep him busy there, but who knows, folks? It's the Biden administration we're talking about. None of this stuff's going to get solved. If you haven't already, hit that like and subscribe button. Please do so. We got our second story of the day. We got fear woke, intolerant, free speech hating students will cancel them. Professors are dumbing down courses to save their careers, UK professor says. Now, we've talked a lot about the education system and kind of just the dumpster fire that it is, and it's only getting worse, you guys. So from the elementary to middle school to high school has all been dumbed down. It's been shifted way down. Your head would spin if you really knew what was going on behind the scenes. And now it's taking part within the United Kingdom, but also here in the United States. They're both one and the same. So fearing they'd be canceled by free speech hating students, college professors are dumbing down courses, a United Kingdom professor told The Telegraph. You have Professor Stephen Greer, a former human rights lecturer at the University of Bristol, told the outlet he feared for his life after being falsely accused of Islamophobia. Now, The Telegraph said he's written a new memoir in which he sounds the alarm over the deterioration of freedom of speech in academia. Which is interesting that it's coming from the United Kingdom. I mean, hell, a book like that should be written here in the United States, because look what the progressive left is doing, wanting to limit you on your speech. And now they're saying hate speech, and hate speech is just really anything that they disagree with, right? Something that hurts their feelings. Whatever happened to sticks and stones can break my bones, but words can never hurt me? I mean, what happened to that, right? What was it like? Something about glue bounces off me and sticks back to you or something like that. You guys remember that stuff that happened in like the 90s and the 80s. But it's crazy here what's going on. If you want to read a good book that's kind of a little bit outdated, it's a book by Ben Sasse. He used to be the senator of Nebraska. Now I believe he's the president of the University of Florida, or the state University of Florida, or something like that. It's called The Vanishing American Adult, and he does a fabulous job in showing how these kids are growing up, these leftist progressive idiots, and they're complaining about everything, and they falsely accuse people of Islamophobia or being homophobia or racist or whatever it may be. They're just slandering people, and they're a bunch of crybabies, and they're taking over our school systems left and right, and then they're becoming teachers and educators themselves. Quote, falsely accused of Islamophobia, my struggle against academic cancellation was published by the Academia Press and encourages free inquiry and debate in an age of cruel, shameless, unaccountable, and groundless censorship, vilification, and victimization. And it's not just coming actually from the students themselves, it's also coming from the professor. So it's coming from his own side, predominantly his own side as well. Well, what's the background on all this? Students with the Colleges of Islamic Society complained in 2020 that aspects of Greer's module on Islam, China, and the Far East, part of the Human Rights in Law, Politics, and Society course, were racist or discriminatory, The Telegraph said. Students fired off a petition calling for Greer's suspension of dismissal if he didn't issue an immediate apology, the outlet said, adding that just days later he received a series of threatening emails and became alarmed after spotting someone loitering near his home. In fact, Greer, a grandfather of 3, told The Telegraph he feared being attacked or killed by a Muslim extremist, and grew a long, bushy beard, wore false glasses, and pulled up a hoodie, and even carried a sturdy umbrella and a screwdriver for protection. Following a 5-month investigation, Bristol University in July 2021 fully exonerated Greer of all allegations, the outlet said, meaning these are just a bunch of kids that are whiny crybabies that are complaining about something because they have nothing better to do and their grades suck, so they have to blame it on the curriculum that the professor's teaching because they can't get good grades because they're not smart enough to actually study the thing, so they complain about it, and hopefully the guy will get removed so they get another professor that's leftist in there that's going to basically meet their demands so they can get good grades, so they can go work for Twitter and become a bunch of idiots out there, basically censoring and silencing conservatives. That's the main objective here. Let's be honest with what's really going on here. You got a bunch of leftists that can't actually compete in the private sector or heck even the public sector, and so they have to sit there and have somebody meet their demands because they're a bunch of idiots and they don't know how to study. All they know how to do is complain about things and get their way when they have to complain about those things because they weren't getting their way in the first place. But enough rambling from me. Greer told the Telegraph that universities aren't doing enough to protect instructors from intolerant students who could place academics at risk of attacks not only against their reputations but also actual physical attacks based on nothing but lies and distortion, which we've seen so often literally since what? Ben Shapiro went on college campuses. You have Milo Yiannopoulos going on campuses, and Coulter as well. I mean, this has been going on for quite some time. This isn't anything new. My case is not the first of this kind, and nor sadly is it likely to be the last, told the outlet. Cancel culture is fast becoming the source and the scourge of academia, and in my opinion, it threatens to dumb down degrees courses at many of the UK's finest institutions. He added to the Telegraph that many academics, fearing being falsely labeled as hostile to minorities by woke campaigners, are already actively self-censoring to avoid any potential backlash. I mean, it's gotten so bad, you guys, that some of these universities and even high schools are dumbing down curriculum because you have minorities not keeping up with other minorities. And the reason why I say that is because you have the blacks being outcompeted by the whites and the Asians as well. But the Asians are also minorities, so they don't know what to do with that whole spectrum. And so they're bringing down everything so everybody can be at the same level playing field. And if you have somebody that's struggling, say you're a white teacher, and you have a person of color, a black kid or black gal, doesn't matter, struggling. Well, because they're struggling, it's because you're racist. It's not because maybe they aren't studying or they're not understanding the concepts, or maybe you're doing a bad job in servicing them. It's not because maybe you're a bad teacher, or maybe you're just struggling trying to cater to 40 different students, or any sort of the variables that might go into it. It's because you're racist at the end of the day. And even though you're not racist, it's because you haven't accepted your racism, the fact that would lead you to understanding that you're racist, but because you haven't understood that bias and that racism that you inherently have because you're white, you're just going to be racist. No way of turning the tables on that idea. If that doesn't make any sense to you, it's because it doesn't make sense. If you say you're not racist because you're not racist, that means you are not racist. So don't worry about it. The left are a bunch of idiots. Well, he added to the Telegraph that many academics fearing being falsely labeled as hostile to minorities by woke campaigners are already actively self-censoring to avoid any potential backlash. Meaning what they're doing there, and I understand I already read that, but what they're doing here is they're bringing down their grades, they're bringing down their curriculum, they're bringing down everything to make sure that they're not getting any sort of backlash here by self-censoring themselves, their curriculum, and everything that goes involved into it so that they can keep their jobs rather than being freaking hostile or taken hostage by these leftist progressive professors that their coworkers, to even the students, to even other universities, to the media outlets, I mean, to everybody, really. Greer also told the outlet that fellow scholars are also dumbing down their courses for fear of being falsely branded as hostile to minorities, including gays, transsexuals, and Muslims. We saw exactly what happened to Jordan Peterson. The same thing's happening here in the UK. It's already happened in Canada. It's been going on for quite some time here in the United States. But I want to know what you guys think about all this because, look, some of you are going to have kids going to these universities and basically they're going to be brainwashed left and right. I mean, it's already happening in a local education system in terms of the high school and middle schools. You've seen what happens on Libs of TikTok with all these activist teachers. Look, they're not teachers, they're activists. They're there for a purpose and a point. They're there to push their agenda upon these kids. I don't push a conservative agenda upon any of my kids. I don't even wear this hat at work. I wear a hat at work sometimes, but it's not this hat. I don't push any sort of agenda. I have nothing in my room that would signify that I'm a conservative or Republican. The only thing I have in my room is an American flag that was offered by the school itself. So I don't push any sort of agenda, but you have these activist teachers in there that want to sit there. They want to try to trans your kids, groom your kids, show them pornography in the classroom. I mean, there's all sorts of stuff. Really, it's the Democrat Party at this point. If it wasn't, then these people wouldn't be voting Democrat, but they're voting Democrat for a reason because Joe Biden and the rest of the party want to sit there and cater to these leftist psychos out there that want to do crazy stuff and they're dismantling our education system. Let me know what you think about this in the comment section below. Am I being too I don't know, far right, as Joe Biden would say? Would I be an extremist by saying all these things? Would I be an ultra MAGA supporter saying all these things? Because look, the left thinks it's crazy. They think we're nutsos. They think we're conspiracy theorists. Let me know if I'm speaking a little bit of sanity here in the comment section below. Am I being sane, folks? Am I making sense here? Again, let me know in the live chat in the comment section. And folks, thank you so much for supporting us here at the Bald Brad Show. We're looking at the end of February, folks. We are looking for a date on February 26th. The time is to be determined, but February 26th, I think, is the day that we're going to do the announcement. I got a lot of work to do in the next week and a half, 2 weeks here. Keep your calendar open for February 26th. I will make more of an official announcement in the community tab, probably upload a separate video just to make the announcement itself. But again, February 26th, time to be determined. It's probably going to be early in the afternoon or early morning. By early morning, I probably mean like 10 or 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, something like that. So just want to make you aware of what's going to go on. It's a big deal to me. I'm not saying it's going to be crazy massive, but again, we're moving forward here with this channel. As always, again, hit that like and subscribe button, folks. I'll see you tomorrow here on The Bald Brad Show.